Hello everyone, Clea here again with Jenny, and as many of you know or don't know, Jenny not only has a background as an osteopath and a medical professional working with performing artists, but she also has many, and I'll just say many years as a performer. We'll just leave it at that. And so the question really is that because of the way we do things here at Synergy, more of that performance as a team approach, addressing issues for artists. From a performer's standpoint, more so than perhaps a medical standpoint, what do you see as the benefit, or how do you see that for a performer, what the benefit would be for them?
Well, I really think it's something that's been very missing from performing arts for years, that it's something that's very well established in sports, that you have your multidisciplinary team where everybody knows they're part of the jigsaw and they all work as a unit to support the athlete.
Right.
For performers, you have your teacher when you're training, but then when you go into the profession, there might be a rehearsal director who you've never met before, who doesn't know anything about your training. And then if you do get an injury and you need physical support for that, then you go to a physical therapist who again may have no relationship with either your teacher or your rehearsal director. So we have these very sort of split up components with not a lot of communication between them. And certainly from the perspective of an injured performer, what I've seen a lot in my experience as a performer, but also as a medic, is that they have an injury, they kind of go out of training or performance, they go to physical therapy, then they work with a physical therapist and they go, okay, you're good, off you go, we've done our bit. But then they're maybe not ready to fully transition back into performance. And it's that grey area between you've completed your physical therapy, but are you really right back up to full fitness for the specific production that you might be doing? Because all productions require different types of physical fitness. So it's that grey area that I feel a lot of performers fall into, and they can also end up with then recurrent injuries because they're never quite fully resolving, and then they're leaping back into performance before their injured area is really ready to take that load. So the team approach is so important in that they we have that communication between those different components, and therefore the performer's not going to get lost in the mix. So the second thing is that oftentimes when performers have been injured, they can get a little bit distant from their artistic side. They've had to go into the mechanical to work out what's caused the injury, to get their rehabilitation, to do their conditioning work. And they need help just re-engaging with their artistic side, and again being able to put the injury into the background and almost psychologically re-establish themselves as a healthy performer, because they can become a little bit, they can label themselves, oh, I'm now injured. So making sure that mentally they are prepared to go back in as well. And I think having this team approach here ensures that all those things are being taken into account and they're being dealt with, and the performer is really fully ready to return. And even in terms of nutrition and things, what could they do? Very few injuries in performing arts happen out of nowhere. Often they've been a build-up over time of either a particular technique issue or alignment issue. So it's an opportunity to really address all of those issues and make sure their nutrition is good, make sure that they're fit mentally, so that we can stop that injury or that situation from occurring again. So it's an educational opportunity as well, and I think when you have that sort of holistic approach, you're really making sure you're not leaving any stone unturned in the rehabilitation process.
Because none really happens without the other. Whether we're training or rehabilitating or trying to go to another level, there's an impact on you physically, emotionally, nutritionally, and just all of those things. They don't happen separately. I think that's an important point. And the other also is that reintegration back into either a new point in their career or after an injury, I think is key, which is that gray area that seems to be missed quite a bit. So important points for artists and for even, I think, medical professionals that work with them to make sure that they understand that there's a lot of other layers that come into play.
Absolutely.
I think something that you said also played into something you had answered previously about the difference between artistic performers being sort of the novice versus the elite, and being able to distinguish of being at that level where they're focusing a lot on the mechanics and the technique versus getting to the point where some of those things are now a good foundation and building upon that.
Yeah.
It's sort of a little bit of that kind of going back to basics that happens a little bit when they are injured to a certain extent, to a certain point as well. And so it's also that confidence that somebody who might be at an elite level, now they're feeling they've regressed or gone back to a fundamental level, and sort of again training them mentally and emotionally to not stay in that technique and then return back to the level that they were at before. So
yeah, it's about, you know, performers are very good at labeling themselves.
Right.
I'm injured. Quite often injury is correlated with some sort of fault or failure in some way, and that can have a psychological impact on the confidence level to return to performance. Am I fit enough? Am I ready to go back? So unless you address that, then you're not really giving them everything they need to go back and not to falter in the process.
Exactly.